after I go through and explain why, how it would be used, the price then seems, holy cow, that's a no-brainer.
All right, what is up, guys? Episode 92 of Yellow Color Glasses. We got me and Austin here, and we're going to talk about some planning and risk management, why it's important, some things that people should think about when it comes to those two topics, and then just kind of what we see in the profession and what we see, in the office, dealing with clients and insureds and all that stuff. So before I get started, though, I'm going to do read a review here. I'll make this short and sweet. Jack L. said, "Great people, always willing to help." All right, we just did some stuff for him, and he's got some really good business things going. He's taken off, and he's doing really well. So thanks for the review, Jack, and hope everything's going great, man.
We appreciate it.
With that, Austin, we're going to do peak and a pit. Okay, so peak, something that's going great in life right now, and then we'll get to the pits. You can do either one first.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Peak, I mean, honestly, it's tough because I feel like I have a lot of good things going, which is exciting. But house-wise, we closed on everything. Painters are in, kind of finishing up some stuff right now. So we should be moved in next week. It's kind of the fun, boring part, packing and all of that. So we'll be doing a bunch of that this weekend. Work's going great, family life's great, so a lot to be thankful for. Peak, or I guess let's see. Let's see. What's the opposite?
Well, I'll go peak. Okay. So peak for us. Oh man. So I think it's just the fact that soccer is winding down. I feel like every time I do a peak and a pit, it has to do something with our kids. But Anyway, we've been going, and Macklin and Asher aren't doing baseball this summer, which I was kind of disappointed. But we're gonna, have a little bit more free time. Yeah. We can actually shoot some baskets and kick the soccer ball around in the yard, and not have to feel like we're gone every single night of the week. So that's a peak right there. Yeah, pit.
Yeah, pit, I'm probably going to say is packing. We do have movers that are going to handle the big stuff, so it won't be super terrible. But yeah, just kind of in that weird transition period, I guess, between where we're at and moving. I'd say that's probably the peak, but that's also fun, is getting settled in and all of that. So I'm really just kind of stretching for it. But yeah, other than that, I think that's it.
Packing sucks.
Moving in general is just tough. It's boring and frustrating, but we're trying to look at it in an optimistic way.
For sure.
Excited, figuring out where things are going to go, getting settled in, all of that is fun. We're trying to make it as fun as we can.
And the cool part is every time you move, it actually gets easier because you have less stuff each time you move.
That's so true. You do not just accumulate random. Yeah, it's amazing because when we moved in to where we're at now, we didn't feel like we had enough stuff. We had to buy a bunch of, and now it's like every drawer, every storage, anywhere we can put stuff, we've got stuff. So we definitely need more space. It's exciting. We're pumped. Honestly, we talked about this yesterday, but one of the most exciting things about this is that I get to have a yard to mow.
For sure.
I love that. Pumped. So yeah. Anyway, a lot of good stuff.
So a pit for me is the fact that I cannot keep my yard mowed. It is, if you don't know, it's rained a lot in the Midwest over the last couple weeks. Mm-hmm. And whoever, we hired to do our lawn fertilization stuff, they did a killer job because it's awful. It looks like a hayfield in the backyard.
Have you heard of the robot mower?
I have. I don't know if the robot could handle what we've got going on.
You got a little bit more than just a small yard, but you may have to get two of them. But that is crazy. It's like a iRobot for your yard.
Yeah, and I don't know. We may get one of those eventually, but I'm hoping that here in a few years we have a couple of robots named Macklin and Asher that can do that.
Yep.
So
best part about having kids.
So peaks and pits. So Austin, when we were talking about this yesterday on kind of what we wanted to talk about, what we wanted to go into, you brought up a good phrase, a good analogy, and really, as risk advisors or risk management and what we do in the insurance field and the planning field, you said you got to start with a great defense.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to start with a great defense. What does that mean to you? Explain what you were talking about whenever you said that to me.
Well, I think starting with the defense, it means that you are reducing your risk for something bad to happen. You're protecting assets, family, income, whatever that is, to make sure that bad days are not multiplied because you didn't have things prepped. And I think the reason that it's so important for us to talk about is because it's boring, right? No one likes talking about, oh, did you see the Chiefs play? Their defense was great. No, that's not what people are talking about. They're talking about, hey, put up 50 points and Pat threw for 6 touchdowns, right?
Yeah.
That's the exciting stuff. And so we have kind of an interesting point of view because we're in this defensive side all day. But we also understand that it's not something that people are like, I really want to talk about some insurance, or I want to talk about getting protection in place for whatever those liabilities are. And we talk about this all the time to clients. Insurance is one of those things that you want to get in place, and then as long as you trust the agent or the plan's good and you're not having huge life events, then it's done, right? You don't have to think about it anymore. So then you can go think about the exciting stuff. So with defense in mind, defense does win championships. And it's because you have to make sure that the other team's not scoring too many points and allows your offense then to grow and kind of do whatever you need to. But really any kind of foundation, whether it's a sports team, your income, personal assets, whatever that is, starting with a good defense just means that you're going to ensure that if anything happens, good or bad, you're still moving forward, and it's not setting you back 10, 20 years for retirement or whatever the goal is. So that was kind of my thought process on it.
No, I love it, and that's a really good analogy too, because it still even correlates to when you brought up the Chiefs and the offense versus defense and scoring points, all that. People who are really, really diehard football fans or really understand the game, they understand that defense really is extremely, extremely important.
For sure.
Same thing in the real world with your money, with your finances, with your assets that you're protecting. You understand that it has a reason, it has a purpose, and the value in it. And so the things that you're talking about really are your typical kinds of insurance, right? The boring stuff, like you said, your home, your auto, life insurance. Those are the things that most people, don't want to pay for. Okay, it's just it's an expense that has no immediate, there's no
immediate
instant gratification.
Yeah.
So it's so important though, because those are the things that can set you back and absolutely devastate your family from a financial standpoint if you are not correctly covered.
Yeah.
So I love that. What do you feel like the biggest thing that you see as an insurance agent when you're having these conversations over the boring stuff? What do you think the biggest objection or hiccup do you see from new customers that you're trying to talk to about those boring things?
I don't feel like I get a ton of pushback other than price, right? I think one big thing I do want to make sure we talk about is umbrella policies, but then also our standard at the office as far as minimum coverage that we'll write. So I think the only pushback that I get really is just if we're adding on an umbrella policy is the extra price. But after I go through and explain why, how it would be used, the price then seems, holy cow, that's a no-brainer for the most part. So I think most of it, explaining, doing a good job, making sure that it's easy to understand, easy to digest from the client, because they're not in this world every day, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the normal day-to-day terms that we use are foreign to them. So being able to put it kind of in a perspective where they can see, holy cow, if I got into a car accident, something happened, it was really bad, person I hate goes to the ICU, and all of a sudden my coverages, what I thought were great on my car insurance, didn't pay out enough. And so you have two options then. One is that you go without umbrella and you pay out of pocket, right? You're at the risk of having a lawsuit or trying to, make up for that. And if it's six figures, that's a huge setback for retirement, whether they're close to retirement or whether they're, a young family just starting out. Most people don't have six figures to just throw out and then continue on and be fine. So that's one option. Or the other option is you pay couple hundred bucks a year, and you have an extra $1 million in liability to make sure, God forbid, something does happen and it's a nasty accident. This takes care of it. Then when you weigh the pros and cons after it's kind of explained, clients are like, yeah, that makes sense. And that's a no-brainer. So I would say a misunderstanding, or maybe not even a misunderstanding, but just agents in their past, these clients have not done a good job explaining coverages, which is, a big responsibility on our end. But I think once you break it down and make it clean cut and the client kind of sees it from their own perspective, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I think the umbrella piece of things is when I very first started trying to, upsell an umbrella or talk about that coverage. It was very rare, but I think some people who are not familiar with it think that it's just an extra money pool. It's one more thing you can add on to grab another couple $100. It is so simple though. It literally looks over your autos and looks over your home and any other properties that you have. And it's exactly what Austin just said. It is an extra $1 million of liability to cover you to your family, right? What?
Or can go higher, but base $1 million,
And one of the things I like to do when I'm talking or doing a presentation is I like to put them in the situation. Hey, you're driving down the road, okay, and this happens, and it's your fault. And then whenever you can put it into those kind of perspectives for them, okay, that kind of clicks a little bit more.
Hey, I'm driving. They actually picture themselves doing it, and everyone drives, obviously, so it's a lot easier for them to make it real, right?
Yep.
But should we maybe explain a little bit more of what an umbrella is?
Yeah, go. That's what I was going to ask you.
So the way I explain an umbrella policy in insurance terms is relating to an umbrella in real life. So when you have an umbrella outside when it's raining, it protects everything underneath it, right? And so with an umbrella policy in the insurance world, it protects all of your underlying policies. So your home insurance, your auto insurance, like you said, rental properties, but it extends everywhere. So like I said, we use the example of getting into a bad car accident, it would cover that. But let's say someone's on your property, neighborhood kids riding their bike on their driveway, slips, falls, breaks an ankle, and they try to sue you. It goes over your base liability coverage on your home. Typically it's $500,000 or $1 million, whatever that is. But let's say the total lawsuit and damages were $1.5 million. So your underlying home policy pays out the $500,000, and then your umbrella policy kicks in to cover the difference. So it's an extra layer of coverage between you and a nasty claim, and then being able to come after assets or garnish wages, anything like that. So like I said, once you put it in kind of perspective and break it down for the client, paying $250 a year for an umbrella policy, it's like, well, shoot, that makes a ton of sense. Because it's a wild thing being in insurance, because we sell something that we hope you never have to use, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a wild thing. A lot of times you want to sell something that people are dying to get, but it's something we never want you to have to use. But if you do, and I tell clients this all the time when I'm talking to new people, I don't want something to happen, you get into an accident, you have a claim, and you're calling me because I didn't give you enough coverage. If I at least talk to you about it and you decide not to, that's it, but I've done my due diligence. But my whole goal and kind of purpose is to make sure that if something does happen, you're calling me and saying, man, I'm glad we got that umbrella. That saved me $150,000, whatever the number is, right? So, yeah.
Mike's got this. That's what those umbrellas protect against. Mike DePasquale. You know the Mike's Got This commercials?
No.
You hear him all the time.
Oh, the attorney.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Mike's Got This. Yeah. Every time I hear those commercials, and you hear them on sports radio all the time, which that's more of going after the insurance companies. But the piece of it too is the insurance companies. Whenever you have those coverages, like they're looking at you as a risk too that they want to take on, right? They're looking at you as a person who values insurance, who values having, because you also need to explain, what do you have to have in order to have an umbrella policy?
Yeah, that's a great point. So there are certain minimum limits that you have to have. And when I say limits, as far as your car insurance, bodily injury and property. So you get into an accident, you hit, hurt, injure someone, send them to the hospital. It's how much your base level auto policy is going to pay out for those medical payments. So you can do combined single limit, which just means that whether there's one person or multiple people, it's going to pay out the same amount. Minimum's $300,000. Or if you do what's called split limit, which is where you have one amount if you injure one single person, and then another amount for multiple people, that's $250,000, $500,000. And so you do have to have high enough limits to qualify for the umbrella, but you're right, it does, that's one of the main questions that insurance carriers ask when you're quoting is what their previous limits were, because it does say a lot about it. And so we can kind of talk about our minimums too, that kind of tie into the whole point that if we are writing your insurance, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that you're covered correctly and taken care of. So
yeah, and when you talk about our standard of coverage, it's something that I'm so glad now that we're almost 3 years into this. I'm so glad that we went this route and that we stuck with it. And it was really hard at the very beginning when we first opened up, and you're trying to write, as you need to write every single policy you can.
Sorry, yeah.
And so what it has done though is it's just like we're talking about, insurance companies looking at the type of clients that they want and the risk that they want. When we're selling our policies, we're not selling the cheapest policy just to get your business. Everything that Austin's talking about with making sure that you are covered correctly, making sure that you understand why you need all these coverages. We don't stray away from that just to make a sale.
Right.
So what go ahead and go into what our standard of coverage is and how we operate with that.
Yeah, so I think I'll touch on first. So here in the state of Missouri, state minimum, the lowest that you can absolutely possibly go is $25,000, $50,000. So that's bodily injury, just like I talked about previously. That is what Missouri requires. And at the office, we will not write anything less than $100,000, $300,000. And the reality is, price-wise, it's gonna increase a little bit. But again, the pros and cons weighing it out just does not make sense for us. And if a client calls in and says, hey, I'd love for you guys to give me a quote, but I want to see nothing else other than state minimums. It's like, fantastic, I can refer you out and I can give you a couple names, but it's not something that we'll do, because it goes back to the same point. If they get into a claim, they have state minimum, most of the time, the extra $25,000, $50,000, $75,000 that they would have had is not something they have sitting in the bank, right? And so we do not want to put ourselves in a situation that a client's hurting or set back extremely financially just because they saved $15 a month. So it's not worth it to us. And I think it honestly just goes to quality over quantity, right? Yes, you want to write a lot of business when you're starting out, but now that we're established, it's one of those things that makes you, when you go home, you feel good. You know that you did what's in the best interest of the client, and it's not $100, $200 more a month. Like I said, it's $15, $20 typically changing it. So it's one of those things that after you explain it, I don't have a lot of clients that are giving me a ton of pushback. It makes sense to them. They understand it. And a lot of times the biggest thing that I've heard is that, I've never heard that. I had no idea what those numbers meant. I just called a company and got signed up, and I've had state minimums my whole life, and I never knew what they even did. And so it's just a lack of education on the insurance agent. It's not the client's fault. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so that's kind of where I think we take pride in is explaining the coverages, having those minimums that we won't show anything less. I think all of that is important, and then really a lot of the objections go away because it does make sense.
Yeah, because nobody's going to sit there and say, no, I don't want to be properly covered. Like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, then they may say, hey, I just can't afford that.
Yeah,
and that's understandable. But no one's going to argue that point. I agree.
One of the things I tell people, even whenever we're quoting, and maybe I'm not competitive, and I'll say, hey, regardless if you switch over to us, you need to get these increased.
Correct.
And most of the time they're like, yeah, you're 100% right.
Yeah, 100%. At least go back to your carrier and ask to increase it.
Yeah.
Because like I said, price-wise, it's not anything crazy drastically different. So, but yeah, you're spot on.
I think that's one of the more fun things too, when in the process of when we present, is when we get to have those moments of where we really feel like we did, not that we're supposed to teach everybody things, but whenever you have that moment with a client where they clearly just didn't know, just like you were talking about, it's so nice to know that we were able to educate them. Makes us feel like we're doing our job the correct way, and we're doing right by the customer.
Yep.
So
yeah, 100%.
What about protecting assets with life insurance? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So life insurance is kind of an interesting thing. So I think I've said this before, but my background, how I got started in the insurance world, was life insurance. So that's kind of my foundational piece, I guess, if you will. And as far as boring stuff goes, insurance or life insurance definitely can be one of those. And you mentioned earlier seeing payments come out of your bank account, like, oh, why is this extra payment, extra amount of money going out? Why is it? What's going on with it? And with home and auto insurance, you're required to have it, right? Life insurance, not necessarily. So I think again it goes back to the educational piece. But the reality is, if you're young and healthy, you can have yourself and your spouse insured for $50, $70 maximum, right? And paying that out monthly is a lot easier than trying to replace all of the amount of money that you're going to lose. And I think we can kind of go into more depth about it. But there's 4 things that, like when I'm first talking to a client, I don't just throw out a random number. I don't start with 250 or 500,000 just based off, because I don't know if that's right for you or not, right? So before I go over and do anything with a client, I ask them 4 questions basically. And these are the 4 things that we want to kind of start with to make sure we get covered. So 1, liabilities, so debts, so paying off the house, credit cards, medical payments, anything like that. Second one, and that's when you're talking to a client, most of the time they know that, right? They're like, I want to make sure the house is paid off. Second one is a huge one, but most people don't think about it, and that's income. So if you're a 2-income household and one of the spouses pass away, that's a huge hit. Most people cannot survive and continue to live the same standard of life with one income. So replacing income is huge, just to maintain standard of living. If you have children, make sure that they're able to continue going to soccer or doing the extracurriculars. So liabilities or debts, income. Second one is final expense costs, which is another thing most people consider or think about. But it can be very, very expensive, so make sure that's covered. And then the 4th one, education or extra, if you want to put money aside for college, or philanthropy or family members, or if you just want to have a little extra left over. But those 4 questions really give me a good baseline for each client as far as what they need. And that's kind of how we start the conversation. And most of the time, again, going back to, these clients have not had those types of conversations. They know the house, they know funeral, but thinking about what would happen if half of their income stopped, a lot of times that's not something that they've thought about. Yeah,
and there's so many different avenues we can go down with life insurance, because this is very, just touching the surface.
Oh yeah, we're just thinking just the protection piece right now.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that you need to do is just make sure that it's a priority, that you're thinking about it. And you're not supposed to understand everything about every kind of life insurance too. I think that's where people get scared off as well. There's a lot of products. A lot of people, if you ever went to college, you were probably around certain classes or people that you knew that were going into the financial field. And part of what they do is push and really, prospect and reach out to every single person they know. And so I know myself, I know a lot of people that I know, maybe you've been turned off before by just even having a life insurance conversation. The way that Austin's talking about our process and the way that we do these things in terms of life insurance is all about finding what is the best fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily term, it's not necessarily permanent or whole or index universal or any. You don't need to be scared about it, you just need to be thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said, you're fact finding first. Okay, and there's a lot more that goes into the fact finding piece of it. But you're asking questions and you're letting the client explain really what they need.
Yep.
And I think it'd be fun to do another one where we get into some more life insurance. And Jake and I have done that,
mm-hmm.
but you can never talk too much about that and bring those things back up.
Kind of going back to what I hit on earlier. Yes, sometimes any type of new topic that you're going over can be overwhelming, right? You just don't know. You don't know what you don't know, so it can be a little scary. But life insurance is one of those things that, other than major life events or big things changing, that you can get in place, and then you don't have to think about it.
Nice one.
And so again, if it's boring and you don't want to talk about it, then get it done. Get it done and stop thinking about it, and you don't have to worry about it. And a lot of people tell me, I'm Superman, or nothing's going to happen to me. Well, that's great. And I hope that is true. The reality is we live in a wild, wild world, and we drive a metal box going 70 miles an hour almost every day, and anything can happen. So if it is nerve-wracking, if it is scary, reach out to us, because I can almost guarantee after the conversation, you're going to have a lot more of an understanding and confidence moving forward. Like I said, and then once it's done, it's done. You don't have to think about it. If we need to adjust later on, we can, but that's years and years down the road typically. Yeah,
as much as we think we control everything, we literally control like nothing when it comes to that, no matter what we want to think or what we wish.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. Some other planning that I've got here, and I don't think we need to go into too much detail on this specific podcast. I think it kind of needs its own, but all the things we're talking about with getting in place with your personal insurance, protecting those assets, making sure your coverages are right, the life insurance piece of things. Obviously, then you get into the investments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you get into the investments and
offense.
Yes, your offense and having a comfortable retirement first and foremost. And then the thing that I think people overlook more than anything is the kinds of insurance or kind of care that they need as they get older, which is long-term care.
Great point.
I think every single person, we all know someone, or we've been through it ourselves, where someone old passes away. Okay, maybe not even old, just maybe parents that are 65.
Sure.
And everybody's there, and they're going through everything at the house, and what's going to go to this, and what's going to go to that, and who gets this and that, and it creates a really big situation for the family and the people that are still there, because nothing was planned out.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the. To me, that is something that so many people don't even. They might think about it, but they just never take the time to get into place.
I've had even personally. So when my dad's parents passed away, his relationship with his family and siblings is great. But even I remember him telling me that things got a little heated or things got a little frustrated. Because one sibling wanted this or one sibling wanted to do that, and there was disagreement, right? And so if you think of a family that maybe does not have that great of a relationship, things can get pretty toxic, and it's already a sad, somber situation to begin with. It doesn't need to be added on. So I think two things that probably should break down: one, what is long-term care, and then two, what you're talking about, making sure you have things set up. I'm assuming wills and trusts is kind of what you're thinking. So those are, again, things that can seem overwhelming, but once it's done, it is done. So kind of you go into a little bit more depth about what long-term care is, and then go from there.
So one of the things, just like life insurance, long-term care is also cheaper when you get it earlier. Okay, and so really anybody that's about age 55 and up should start thinking about long-term care.
Or sooner if you can.
Or sooner.
The crazy thing is, obviously if you're thinking about your parents, go ahead.
I think I meant to say 50 there. Where were you at? What have you always been told on long-term care?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the sooner you can, obviously, the issue nowadays is that when I first got into the industry, there was, 30, 40 carriers that would write long-term care. And then now I think there's about 5 or 6. And it's because their actuaries did not calculate accurately the amount of people that would utilize long-term care. And so, yeah, I mean, it can be very, very expensive. And the reality is long-term care can be very, very expensive. If it's your parents, if you're thinking about putting your parents or in a nursing home, you obviously want them in a good, safe environment, right? Mm-hmm. And those nursing homes can be $10,000 a month starting out. And so, again, it goes back to kind of the planning, and then you don't have to think about it. But yeah, I think once you get to a point where you've got your traditional insurance, your life, whatever umbrella, you've got all your personal policies, you started investing, you feel confident that you've kind of taken those first 3 or 4 steps. I think long-term care is a great kind of pivot. And again, we'll probably have to expand on this later, but there are life insurance policies
100%
that have riders, which is just a kind of an endorsement or an attachment that you can add on to these policies that do have sometime, long-term care.
I think I know a place that writes those policies.
Oh my gosh, seriously.
So no, we're going to go into that more detail on another podcast, because the legal document stuff with the trusts and the wills and the long-term care, like those are big deals that we really haven't talked a lot on the podcast. We haven't talked a lot in our office about those things. But as our client base continues to grow and we have people reach out about certain things and certain products and asking questions on what they need to have in place, I think it's important that we're continuing to educate ourselves more on it and what's best for people, and then obviously educate all of you on it as well. So
yeah, and there's a lot of different ways that which we'll go in more depth. But I've got a good friend of mine who's an attorney that I've sent a lot of clients to get those set up. And so if you have any questions or want to look into it, reach out to us. But it is something that an attorney would end up setting up for you. So
we're not setting that up.
Right. I wanted to point that out, but we can at least point you in the right direction. But it's one of those things that it really does just reduce a lot of frustration and kind of using your time. If you just lost someone, the last thing you want to do is have to go through and be like, what are we going to do with the car? What are we going to do with the land? We're going to sell the house. We're going to keep the house. It's just one of those things that you can take off your plate and just kind of, hopefully celebrate the life and not have to be frustrated or annoyed you're going through a garage or whatever, trying to divide stuff. So
okay, well, you got anything else, Austin, before we hop off of here? Anything you want to add? I feel like we've had a good combo.
Yeah. I don't know. You want to expand on anything else? I'll tell you the thing that I was going to talk about, but I don't think it's super relevant now, but we were talking about Cyrus and his agency, and how he's had employees that have stuck with him forever, and it's because of the culture overall. So that I think will be kind of a different topic, but Jake and I were talking about it, which is what made me think about it. And anyway, that coverages and our culture kind of go hand in hand. It's kind of a base level. We want quality interactions. We want quality clients. We want quality, employees, all of the above. And all of that is kind of your foundational piece. But whether it's personal or the agency overall, it's going to only enhance the growth and the opportunity. So, but anyway, that's probably another.
Yeah, I love where you're going with all that. No, and it's true. I mean, across the board, whenever you have that in place, it makes the experience of everything so much better. So, no, I think we need to hit on that on another segment.
Yep. Yeah, but I do think having a more in-depth about life insurance in general, because there are a lot of different options, a lot of different ways, and like you said, there's not a cookie cutter, one fit or one size fits all, which I think goes back to why having our original fact finder conversation is so important, because a lot of clients will come in and say, I want 100,000 in life insurance. Like, great. How'd you come up with that number? Like, I don't know. I just thought.
Sounds
maybe
good.
That, yeah. It's
round.
Yeah,
it's rounded.
Perfect. I owe 90,000 on my home and 10,000 for funeral. And then you get to talking and it turns out they need, 550,000. And then especially when you go about it and you ask those questions, you realize that it's not just me trying to bump up your coverage or make you pay more. It's because that's what you need. And so we'll have to do that again. That'll be a good one. I think that'll be beneficial and useful for everyone.
For sure. All right. Well, Austin, great talk. This was episode 92, Yellow Color Glasses. Thanks everybody for checking it out. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the reviews, all that stuff. So we'll see you guys next time.